Okay, so Alex, I'm going to give you a case here called the Provo Symphony Orchestra.
Great.
And so let's just start out here. How you feeling?
Sounds great.
Good?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm just dandy, you know?
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's assume our client is the Provo Symphony Orchestra. You can call it the PSO. It's a nonprofit orchestra based in a major U.S. city. The PSO is a critically acclaimed performing arts organization and is regarded as one of the top 20 orchestras in North America. Despite its artistic reputation, the orchestra has experienced a large number of financial difficulties during its 80-year history. The recent past has proven no different, as the PSO has seen a steady drop in revenue over the last 3 years. This revenue decline has led to budget deficits that the orchestra has had to finance through borrowing. Like many nonprofit arts organizations, the PSO's revenues can be split into three main sources. The first is earned income, which primarily takes the form of ticket revenue from both single ticket sales and discounted multi-concert subscriptions. The second is an annual donations by individuals, companies, government bodies, charitable foundations. And the final source is the symphony's endowment, a pool of professionally managed donated funds of which the PSO receives a small fixed percentage or draw each year. Okay, so 6 months ago, the PSO board welcomed a new president to lead the organization, and he's called up Mackenzie to help his management team address the declining revenue problem. If revenues do not eventually improve, the PSO will likely exhaust its credit and have to drastically scale back in size or cease performing altogether. So, what we'd like from you specifically is to know what strategies should the PSO pursue to improve its revenue growth over the next 5 years.
Okay, great. Just to clarify really quickly, so this nonprofit orchestra, based in some random city in America, we don't know
Yep.
the exact city, but it's a very well-regarded orchestra. Seems like it does well for itself, and it has had a history of financial problems. Is that something that's true?
That's true.
Okay, so we're specifically looking how to turn around the revenue stream right now. Are we focusing on profitability or strictly revenue?
So, from what we've been assigned specifically, it's more we're focusing on revenue.
Okay.
Obviously, profitability is something we'd like to consider.
Absolutely.
That would be the extra little bonus, hopefully, on our paychecks.
Sounds great. But so we're not going to dive really deep into cost right now, if I
Correct.
understand. Okay, great. Okay, so
Okay. So the next part here that I'd like you to break down kind of the different revenue streams, and so if you could just kind of label out for me how these the levers are composed,
Okay.
I guess, of the PSO.
the levers of the sources of revenue.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Can you just give me a second? I want to jot down a couple thoughts and see where we are. All right. Okay. So just walking through this really quickly, you have our three revenue sources, right? You have earned income revenue, you have the donations, and you have your endowment. For earned income revenue, we have single tickets and subscriptions, and those are both going to be functions of the number of tickets you sell and the price per ticket.
That's correct.
And I'm assuming that we sell more than one ticket, so there's not just a general admission, but maybe that is the case. If that is not the case, if there are varying different levels, then we would need to segment out each level of ticket sales and the corresponding price. So the number of tickets we've sold, the corresponding price. One question I had about earned income revenue is maybe this other category where we're selling merchandise food concessions, advertising rights. Would that all fall under our earned income revenue?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
great.
And
Just
that's
wanted to
great
make
that you
sure.
pointed that out.
Okay, so that's something that I definitely want to look into a little bit more. The other category, I know we didn't, I mean, that's why we touched on that, but in the future I would love to jump into that.
Great.
The levers, I think, of donations, you're going to want to separate out your donations maybe by the organization type. I know you listed a few, maybe even by geography, but basically it's going to come down to the frequency and the quantity of each donation. So how often these companies are donating, how often these organizations are donating, and how much they're donating each time. One of those two levers may have dipped recently, and which may cause that drop in recent revenue. And finally, looking at the endowment, there's really only two numbers that contribute to that: the total amount that we have in the pool and the percentage that we're receiving, or the percentage that it's growing, I should say, every year. So whatever that draw is that we're taking out, those are the two factors that would contribute to the total revenue from the endowment pool.
That's perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much. It looks like we've broken out all the different levers and such. So that's exactly what I'm looking for, and you've highlighted most of the major issues. Something to be taken into consideration as well is within the area of donations.
Yeah.
There's also some special events and galas that we hold.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of, there's obviously costs associated with those as well, but we also bring in revenue.
Great.
So that's just kind of highlighting how those happen.
Okay.
But that's perfect. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We'd like to move on really quickly here to some earned income analysis. Okay.
So we're looking at just the earned income revenue.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the earned income has historically been the MSO or the PSO's single biggest revenue source. However, earned income has steadily declined in recent years, which has been contributed heavily to the drop in total revenues. So as a result of the earned income decreasing, that's affected the overall income a lot.
Gotcha.
So what hypothetical opportunities could you explore to reverse this trend?
Okay. Great. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a second to, again, map out a couple of my thoughts. We're looking for specific things we can do to reverse the drop in revenue. Is that what we're doing? Okay.
Perfect. Yep.
Great. Okay. Okay, great. I just want to jump in then really quickly. So, in our earned income revenue, we have kind of two main sources: the tickets and the concessions, right?
Yep.
I know within tickets we have, again, two sources as well: the subscription-based and the single ticket sources.
Yep.
I want to talk about those in a minute. I'm going to talk about tickets in general for now, though. So basically, the way I see it is, to increase our revenue, we need to do one of two things. We need to increase the quantity or increase the price.
Correct.
There's a couple different ways we can manipulate the price, but really quickly I want to talk about quantity. I think that's probably our best bet.
Okay.
In the first direction I want to go.
Okay.
Two options there are to either increase the number of tickets per event that we're selling, or increase the number of events.
Great.
So those are pretty much our only options in increasing the quantity.
Yep.
I don't want to lump them all together because I think there are a lot of options, like I was talking about with pricing. I would assume that if our revenue is dropping, that an immediate increase in price is probably not the best option, because this is something I would have to check into, but we probably haven't seen a lot of price change recently.
Yep.
So I'm assuming the decline in revenue has been at least somewhat attributed to a decline in quantity sold.
Okay.
So an increase in price may have the opposite effect what we're looking at. Maybe I should say a flat increase in price, but maybe if, like I'm saying, we play some games with that little price, we can see a way to reverse that situation. So within the tickets away, I would want to increase the number of tickets sold per event.
Okay.
Would be to do things like target new customer groups. I want to look at who we're selling tickets to and which groups are buying the most, find ways to better serve those clients, and find ways to encounter new people. Target people like myself, younger people that may not be attending already. Maybe target families. I'm not sure, but that's something I would want to look into.
Okay.
Another thing I would want to look into is the way we're getting these tickets sold, the channel, the distribution method. Are we selling through facets of online media? Are we using maybe other areas that people might be going to already, like selling tickets at museums? So you come to this museum, look into buying tickets for the symphony orchestra. Third, I want to look at expanding our geography. Are there ways to, and this kind of goes into the number of events, are there areas that we haven't really touched yet? Can we expand the number of events into new geographies? And then also within that number of events, I want to look at new performances. Are there ways we can target specific types of performances that are maybe more lucrative? Are there areas that we can expand into that we haven't before? And then finally, I would want to talk about, once we're in the event, how we can play with those tickets. So I'm talking about when people buy tickets, can we increase the price if they're buying it closer to the event? Can we increase the price if they're buying it in certain seasons? And then can we increase the price if they're in certain proximity to the stage?
Yep.
Are there better locations? Are we selling a flat rate?
So price discrimination.
Exactly, price discrimination. Exactly. So those are the kind of things I would want to look at to increase specific ticket revenue. I'd also want to look at the separation between single season and subscription. And if there's ways we can boost especially subscription sales, because I think if we were to boost subscription sales, you're going to see a big boost in some of those donations as well. Again, that's just an assumption I'm making, but that's something I would want to look into more. I think ways we can offer increased subscription sales is to give people more of an incentive, to maybe give them a broader array of options. Again, a lot of these tie into what I was previously mentioning, but options like 3 or 4 ticket packages, half-season packages, full-season packages. I don't know if those are things we're already offering right now, but there may be ways to boost total sales. I think concessions, which is another major issue that we want to look into. When I say concessions, I mean merchandise, really everything. Concessions would also include marketing in this situation. I think a lot of that has to do with tickets. And is that something we want to jump into, the concession sales, or?
So I think for now, I think that's a good area.
Okay.
We should tackle that later. But for right now, I think you've given us a pretty exhaustive list.
Perfect. Sounds great.
That's fantastic. Oh, so I just have one kind of question. So it looks like you've hit on most of the major things. One other thing to take into consideration is also changing our sales strategy. So, for example, how our sales force is compensated, what incentives we're giving them. You talked a little bit about the channels and distribution already, so that's fantastic. But a little bit more about that specifically. There's also some areas there. So I just have one final question for you before we move on to a different area. If you could ask one single question in terms of what is most important, like what one number would you want to know to then kind of start where you want to head? Because you've outlined a lot of different issues.
You're absolutely
What
right.
is the one question, the first question you'd want to ask?
And that's something I probably should have said. I should have probably defined that at the very beginning. Probably the single thing I would want to look at is the number of tickets sold, broken down by single or subscription over that decline in revenue. So why is our revenue declining based on quantity of tickets sold?
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Another thing that we want to take into consideration is also occupancy.
Occupancy.
How full are these theaters? Is this something? Are we underselling? Are we overselling it, showing that our tickets are overpriced or underpriced, or what does that mean? Okay.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Great. Okay, so moving on here. So maintaining a core subscriber base remains essential to PSO's near to mid-term survival. So specifically, you believe that PSO needs to increase its pipeline of new subscribers and perhaps more importantly, find ways of retaining these customers over time. Although new subscribers tend to have relatively low renewal rates and high acquisition costs, once subscribers enter their 3rd consecutive season, they tend to remain loyal to the symphony thereafter by consistently renewing their subscription and making annual donations. Thus, the lifetime value or total discounted value of all future revenues from a customer for subscribers is quite high. So I hope that makes sense. Basically, as soon as you get them in for the 3 years, they're good for life, it sounds like. So you've been asked to use the current season subscriber data to determine the average lifetime value of a brand new subscriber. For simplicity, focus on revenue and ignore customer acquisition and retention costs. You've already estimated the following. So I'm going to give you some data here to use.
Okay.
So the average revenue from a new subscriber in year 1 is $300.
Okay.
The average discounted revenue from a subscriber in year 2 is $400. So the total average discounted revenue from a subscriber in year 3 onward is $2,900.
Okay, just to make sure, these are mutually exclusive numbers. So, for example, if I'm somebody who's been a consumer for 2 years, I have $300 plus $400 as a
That's correct.
discounted value.
Yeah,
Okay.
as a lifetime value, yes.
So those are.
That's
Year
correct.
1, I'm contributing
one-
300. Year 2, I'm contributing 400.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so number of new subscribers last year was 2,800.
2,800.
Yep.
Okay.
And the number of second year subscribers last year was 1,200.
1,200.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the information I have
Great.
for you.
So just to make sure, could you repeat the specific prompt we're looking for? We're looking for the total lifetime value of one new customer.
Yep. So we've been asked to determine the current season subscriber, the average lifetime value of a brand new subscriber.
Gotcha. Okay. So the way I would want to get that number, the value, what I'm gonna have to do is get so is year 1 revenue contribution plus year 2 plus year 3, but I want to make sure that I kind of caveat year 2 and year 3 by weighting them by the percentage that return.
Great.
So I want to make sure that we don't just assume that people who come in as year 1 are going to stay that whole time. Year 3 plus, I should say.
Yep.
So kind of weight those year 2 and year 3 values based on how likely they are to stay. So the way I'm going to calculate likelihood to stay would be pretty much retention rate.
Okay.
Year 1, obviously, it's 100% retention rate.
That's correct.
I mean, you can't be a new
If you
subscriber.
subscribed, yeah.
Yes.
Drop out halfway through.
The year 2 subscription rate, the only number I have to go off of is this number right here, the 2,800 to the 1,200.
Yep.
Can we assume that's representative of over a long period of time?
So not really, actually.
Okay, great.
So we actually have specific data here on the renewal rate after year 1.
Okay.
That's 40%.
40%. So that's people who go from year 1 to year 2 is 40%.
Correct.
Okay, so that number is going to be 40%. And so then my second question would be, can we use that number
To
for year
represent.
3 and on?
So it's actually 50%.
50%. Okay. So that number, I want to make sure I remember to put a star next to that because I'm not going to weight it just by 50% because if I understand correctly, it's of the people who go from year 1 to year 2, 40% of them stay, and then 50% of that 40% stay after that. Is that correct?
So 50% of that 40%, yes.
Okay,
That would be
just to make sure. So essentially, that'd be 50 times 40%, just so I wanted to clarify
Perfect.
that. Okay,
Yep.
so great. So I'm gonna start plugging in numbers. I think I have all the data I need for my equation. So year 1, we're talking about $300 plus 0.4 times $400 plus 0.5 times 0.4 times 2,900. Just make sure that that's all I need. I'm looking at the present. Yeah, that should be correct. So I'm looking at $300 and then 0.4 times $400. We're talking about $160, and then 0.5 times 0.4. We're talking about 20% of 2,900. So drop the decimal, multiply it by 2. So you have 290 times 2 would be $580. So add those together really quick. I get 880, 980. Let's see, 160. That would be 14. So if I did that math correctly, we should have $1,020 as our answer. Let me make sure that's correct one more time. Actually, $1,040. Sorry, $1,040.
Okay, yeah, that's
$40.
those are the numbers I have.
Great.
Great. Okay, so that's the expected lifetime revenue per new subscriber.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, so moving on quickly here. We'd like to do a team analysis that suggests that we've performed a team analysis that suggests that new subscribers and more financially successful symphonies have an expected lifetime value of approximately $1,300. So how much would the first year renewal rate have to increase to raise the expected lifetime value of a new PSO subscriber to 130?
So the only thing we're touching is the first year renewal rate.
That's correct.
Okay, let me bring over that equation one more time. So we have year one plus renewal rate that we're looking for times year two plus renewal rate times. So we're not changing the other renewal rate?
That's correct. So you can assume that the second year renewal rate does not change.
Okay, so that 50% number stays the same.
Correct.
Year three. So year one we had 300 plus, looking over here, my old numbers, 400x is essentially what we're going to talk about, plus 2,900 times 0.5 times x. So we're looking at 300 plus 400x plus 1450x. So I have 300 plus 1850x, and we want that to equal $1,300 total, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're looking at 1850x equals $1,000. So x equals 1,000 over 1450. So that's not going to be the most fun math to do, but I don't think it's going to be too hard. So that will simplify to 20 over 37. 20 over 37 is the smallest I can get that fraction, so I'm looking at
You could just
roughly maybe 50-something%, maybe 55%-ish. Okay. I can get a more accurate number if you want, or if you want to stick with that.
I think it's fine for right now. Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So we're looking at a 55% roughly renewal rate needed to increase that value to $1,300.
Perfect. Okay. So great. So our new president has just walked in the room, and he asks Alex, where can we get the money we need, and what should we do?
Okay, great. So essentially we've determined that the most important thing we need to target are these subscriber consumers, the people who are buying multi-ticket subscriptions over a several year basis. We found they've been especially lucrative if we can keep them for 3 years or more. That's when really the money starts coming in. So we've determined that $1,300 per subscriber is a goal target. To get that, we need to increase our annual retention rate, specifically from year one customers to year two customers, up to roughly 55%. That's the number we calculated.
So what changes that?
Well, sorry, what was that?
What change would that be? How much?
Oh, that we're changing that from 40% up to 50+%.
Okay.
So we're talking about a 10 to 20% increase, percentage point increase that we need to see. There are a lot of things we could do to get that increase, and that would probably be the next step I would want to look into, ways to increase customer retention. We talked about a couple things at the beginning, things like targeting new customer bases, changing the sales channel. There's several different things we talked about, and those would be the next steps we would want to look into.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. Excellent.
Great.